Welcome to the Power of Pleasure podcast. I'm your host, L'Oreal, and I'm on a mission to help you embrace pleasure as a lifestyle. This show is a love letter to all the pleasure life has to offer. And each week, I'll be chatting with friends, loved ones, peers, and people I admire about all things pleasure. Through these conversations, I'm giving you the best tools, resources, and tips to help you create a life that is ooey gooey juicy good, one shift at a time. So buckle up and let's get ready for this week's episode. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, beautiful people, wherever you are, whenever you are. Thank you so much for joining me today for another episode of the Power of Pleasure podcast. I am your host, L'Oreal Moss. I am your personal pleasure coach, sensuality architect, kink enthusiast. I'm all about you embracing pleasure as a lifestyle. And today I am joined by the brand transformation guide. She is one of my favorite people. She's been out here doing a damn thing, getting all in my business, literally, figuratively for the last couple of years, but I'm so grateful. Welcome, Miss Famira Green, to the show. Welcome.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here with you, L'Oreal. You know, we always have great conversations. So I'm
Yes,
excited for today.
I
Thank you
am
for having me.
too. Absolutely. So a lot of I want this show to be as diverse as possible. I know we talk a lot about, well, on the show we talk a lot about sex and all that kind of stuff, but I really want people to know that you can find pleasure in anywhere doing anything. And I want people to also be empowered, right? So it's not just about pleasure in sex or pleasure in your personal life. I want people to have pleasurable relationships, period. I want people to have pleasurable businesses, period. And I know that you know what it is like to build a business that does not feel good, that drains you, to create a community of people that you thought were the right folks, and it turns out they weren't the right folks. And so I know, I've been following your journey. We've been in some containers together, had some really amazing things happen. And I will never forget when you got started with Gene Keys. And I really want to talk about that, because when you first introduced it, I was like, what is that? And not on some, she's crazy, but I've never heard of this. What is this thing? And you just took it and ran with it. And everything that has unfolded as a result of that has been so dope. And so I wanted to talk to you about that today, and how that particular modality helps you create the communities that you create the relationships that you create with people, and also create some bomb ass content for your socials and your business. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it, girl.
Right. So really quick though, go ahead and let the people know a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do, and then we'll get into it.
Okay, awesome. So, hey, everybody, I am Famira. I am your brand transformation guide. And essentially, what I do is I work with women entrepreneurs, femme presenting entrepreneurs, to really create a brand that is, I know it's cliche, but authentically them. But I mean it for real, like literally based off of their own DNA and how they have been divinely designed to show up. So, not only are we creating brands that they end up loving, but we're also attracting communities that they are divinely connected to. So that's the work that I do. I focus mainly on content because so many entrepreneurs struggle with content. They hate doing content. And my desire is really to shift the way people view content, not as a chore, but as a conversation. And what are the deeply connected conversations that you want to have with the world, and allowing yourself to have them unadulterated in the marketplace. And so that's a little small snippet of kind of like what I do. I always tell people working with me is an experience that you really won't know till you know. um, but so I help other people say what they do, but when it comes to me, I'm like, listen, it's a whole lot of, as my one of my favorite TikTokers, Terry K says, it's a whole lot of going on over here, but it's a lot of magic happening.
Absolutely. I was just about to say it's a whole lot of in the best way though. And it's in a way that doesn't feel forced. Like I'm in a whole lot of like groups and stuff, but I make sure that I'm able to like show up as best I can. Like when you have your live calls and stuff, like when I can't make it, girl, I can't make it, I'm at work or whatever. But you know how they go. Now I'm just like, I'm in there. I'm there, like regardless of what's going on, like I'm coming, let's do this because you always get something that you need and the information comes in expected and unexpected ways, which I think is really dope. And it just feels really real. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like you're following a specific blueprint or you're trying to like check off certain talking points and things like that. And so, how did you even get to a point where you just were able to do that? I know like a lot of people, they're able to get people into their containers. They're able to like make sales and get people to buy the things, but getting people to engage, getting people to open up about what's really going on, what they're really feeling stuck on. Like, I feel like that is a gift, but I also feel like a lot of people just don't even possess the basic skill set to even be able to start doing that. So how has your work with Gene Keys allowed you to be able to do that for your own community?
So there's a lot of different moving parts. So, right, in regards to how I got here. So, first of all, at the time that we are talking, I'm about
Mm-hmm.
to celebrate 11 years in business. So
Yay.
it's been a long time. So
Mm-hmm.
I also want to be clear about that so people understand. Also, my educational background, my degree is in counseling. So there's also that in regards
Mm-hmm.
to knowing how to ask questions and coach and how to make people feel comfortable and make people be able to open up, right? Then there's also my DNA, like my divine design and how I've been created. Like people have always shared with me, um, and me and my best friend always talk about this because she is like to the umpteenth power. I always tease her. I'm like, we ain't never went nowhere where she knew a stranger because everyone always comes up to her.
Mm-hmm.
So in the process of that, me and her have been friends now almost 30 years. And so of course I picked up some things from her. So there's a lot of extenuating circumstances and pieces of like who I am that allows me to create the containers that I create. But one of the biggest things I think that also shifted it when I started learning my gene keys is this aspect of I don't have to be perfect. And I think, especially as Black women and minorities, especially if you're living in the Americas, right? When you're talking about business, there is this programming that we have to be perfect and we have to show up put together and we have to do all these things. And it's still something that I deal with. I'm not gonna front and act like I got it all together. I still have moments where I deal with that, but letting go of this notion that I have to show up perfect in my containers for them to be powerful, right? Really created a shift. Um, and I get to be human in my spaces too, right? Um, and so through me allowing my own humanity in my spaces, it allows other people to showcase their humanity in my spaces as well, right? And so it helps with the engagement because I like based on people that have been in my space, I feel like I work, my intention is really to create safe space. People also know I don't have no problem speaking up, if something ain't going the way it's supposed to go. you
Mm-hmm.
know I don't have no problem calling people out, calling people in, whatever you want to say, calling them up, stomping them out, I don't know, whatever you want to say. What I'm saying? Like, I don't have no problem with, I'm not avoiding confrontation, different things like that. And so, which for me, I think is really important as a transformational leader, right? Somebody that's really trying to create change and transformation in the people that you work with. And I tend to attract other transformational leaders, right, into my spaces. And so I always look at it as a relationship. That's part of it, right? Like that's part of the relationship, not just what they get from me, but what I also get from them. And I act as such in the space, but you have to be afraid to make mistakes. I mean, you have to be afraid. Not be afraid to make mistakes. You have to not be afraid to be human in your spaces. And I think that that's what holds a lot of people back. And so therefore, they create spaces that have a lot of pretense to them because people can feel that off of the leader. I mean, literally this week I was supposed to have Q&A with my community. I had a major migraine. I'm not even somebody that gets migraines, but with everything that's going on cosmically, and then I was also dealing with some personal things with my family. I took some medicine. I woke up at 3:26 and was like, oh my God, I was supposed to be on here at 3:00. And I could have, tried to be like, oh my God, I'm so, make it. So I was just like, listen, y'all, I literally went in there and just told the truth. I took some medicine. I just woke up. It's 3:26. I didn't even realize what time it was. With this daylight savings, first of all my time and my body is off because it feels like it's like it is. And I just said that, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then the person that I saw that had logged on, I reached out to her, like, did you have any questions? I can answer them in the DMs. But Famira 6 years ago would have probably had a panic attack, like realizing that, oh my God, I'm late, right? And because we always want to serve in excellence, but at the same time, things happen. You are a human being, and the more you negate your own humanity, how are you really able to create community and space for other people to be human too?
I love that. And I think like that's another one of the things that drew me to your space. I can't remember. I don't even know how long I've been in your group. I don't even know how long at this point. But I remember, I think it was around this time of the year. I know now that during this time of the year, like you still showing up, but you working on stuff in the background and you about to take a break in a minute, right? Like I know that. But it was around this time of the year. And I feel like it was some sort of transitional point because you were doing like a lot of brand work and graphic design and stuff like that, and you created this whole thing, and then you was like, I changed my mind, I'm not doing it. And I was like, what? And I wasn't offended. It made me happy because I had never seen anybody do that before. I had never seen anybody do that before. Like in these online spaces, a lot of people create stuff, for whatever reason, and they will go against their inner knowing. And well, I already created it, might as well put it out there. You know what I'm saying? But you were like, I'm going to honor myself and I don't want to do this. And so I'm not doing this. And I was like, damn, like I thought that was so dope because nobody else had done that. And I had worked with a lot of people who would dishonor themselves constantly while teaching other people to honor themselves and like enforce your boundaries and, prioritize your well-being, but they were doing the opposite. They were very much on do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
But you don't show up like that. And from that moment, I was like, yeah, I'm here for that. And I stopped doing a lot of shit too. I'm like, well, I just needed the evidence. I needed to see that it was okay to do that. Nothing blew up, nothing burned down. Nobody, to my knowledge, left the community. Everybody was like, okay, cool, girl, do what you got to do. And I was just like, wow.
Yeah, because see, this is the thing. Like you said, one, when we honor ourselves, we give other people permission to honor themselves, right? And one of the things I love about Gene Keys and even human design, any type of spiritual modality, right? Any spiritual modality that you step into, if it does not increase your own level of self-awareness, is then what you're doing it for, right? Like, so you know, that's the premise of spirituality, right? So whether it is your religion, I'm very much still consider myself Christian, which I know people be like, wait a minute, because I also believe in astrology and
Mm-hmm.
Gene Keys and human design and all those different things, right? As tools um, for how God created me. Um, but any type of spiritual tool that you are accessing, it should heighten your self awareness. You should know yourself more and more through the experience and process of whatever that spiritual tool is taking you through. And it should allow you not only to know yourself, but allow you to stand 10 toes down in who you are, right? So that is what this work has helped me to do. And that example that you gave is a outward display of that, because for me, you know, my radiance sphere and my gene keys, which is all about what makes you healthy, right? The shadow side of that is exhaustion. So anytime I feel exhausted when I'm bringing something to fruition, I know something is off. Either the timing is off or the idea is off. Maybe it wasn't actually for me. It was supposed to be for somebody else. Maybe, you know, maybe it was just something I was supposed to think about and not actually act on, but because I am so used, I'm hyper, I'm a overachiever. I'm used to like taking an idea and running with it. Sometimes I do that and I don't allow myself to sit with it, and then I'm exhausted. And that now to me is like, okay, let's not do this, because it's not going to get the result or the transformation that people need to get out of it, because I'm not in the right space. And so I would rather refund people their money, you know, cancel it, with people looking at me sideways, you know, or whatever, um, to honor that aspect of it, right? And you're right, no one left. Like I didn't even get anyone tripping, um, you know, or anything. My community, honestly, because of the way I have built it, my community is a very compassionate community, and they give me lots of space. They are very caring in regards to holding me as a person, right? So, and that's the difference between true community and guru worship, right? When people look at people as their gurus and they put them on these pedestals, it's like you can never falter, because I hold you in this epitome of this ball, right, of who you are. And if you waver from that, then who are you, right? But when you're in community and it's more like we're locked arm in arm, it's like, okay, well, I can hold her up while she's tired or while she's struggling just the way she did for me. So, but that's the good thing about, and I'm just to the point, I mean, to the topic at hand. If it don't bring me pleasure, I don't want to do it.
Period.
I mean, because what did I build a business for? Not for it to be work.
Yeah, and a lot of people have fallen into that trap. I know I have. Like, I'm still trying to figure some stuff out, and I feel like I'm finally in a place where I'm doing what feels good, and I'm not allowing people to talk me out of stuff just because it doesn't make sense to them.
Right.
And that's one thing that I really appreciate, because in your spaces, you allow people to do whatever they want to do. Like, you don't talk anybody out of doing anything that doesn't make sense. You know, like I've seen you be like, I've never seen that, but you can do it, you know, and then give them stuff that they can do to make it happen. And it's like, how come it can't just be that simple all the time? Like,
Right. Because here's the thing, this is why I'm a firm advocate of being anti-cookie cutter in the coaching space, right? It's because so many people, one, they don't have the actual coaching expertise or counseling expertise to be
mhm,
able to deal with people as individuals. So they create a formula that has worked for them, and then that worked for two or three other people that were exactly like them, right? And then now it's like, oh, well, this works for other people, so it should work for everyone. No, you worked it out with people that were exactly like you. Circumstances the
Mm-hmm.
same as yours, thought process the same as yours, environment probably the same as yours, right? Because let's be honest, when we first get started, you deal with people that are closest to you in proximity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times that ends up being people that have very much more similarities to you than they have differences. So now you didn't give them your process, and of course it works for them because duh, they're exactly like you, right? So but then now you try to go out and you tell everyone else that this is how to do it. But now you go, as you spread, you're going further and further away from who you actually are. And so now it's like, okay, these other people you bring into this sphere, and depending on how you rose to fame, now you're this guru, and you leave all these other people who are in these outer proximities feeling like something is wrong with them because
Mm-hmm.
they cannot get the same results that you and your inner circle got, not realizing it's because they're not even designed to operate the way in which you operate, right? They're not even designed to show up in the way in which you show up, right? And that's why tools like Gene Keys and human design for me are like so powerful. And I like to focus on Gene Keys more so because it goes even deeper to me, into who you are and how you operate, and how do you attract people to you, how are you in community with people, what's your natural relationship with money, that you should be building into your business. How are you supposed to brand yourself? What is your life's work compared to your purpose? What is your actual genius zone? How do you operate in relationships? Let's take a trip back through um, you know, your childhood and look at all that aspect of it too. When was your IQ developed? When was your spiritual quotient developed? When was your emotional intelligence developed? What does that look like? What was happening at that time, right? What's some of your core wounds that are now your biggest victories if you allow them to be? Like, it goes very deep, but there's a lot of aspects to the Gene Key work that allows you to see exactly who you are and how you're supposed to show up. But most people don't know how to deal with people as individuals. They only know how to deal with them as collective from a coaching standpoint, right? And that's something that I feel like makes the biggest difference, because I tell people all the time, it's not my business, it's your business. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no what should I do? What should you do? Like, according to you, it's your business, not my business, right? So the whole should, what I should be doing, what am I supposed to? I always say it's no supposed to, because one of my big sayings that I say all the time, especially when it comes to marketing, is it all works. Every marketing thing works. That's why it drives me bananas when we get into, as entrepreneurs, when you see all these wars behind high ticket, low ticket, group versus one-on-one, whatever the either or coin is of the day. Why are we doing that when it all works? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
have people that are multimillionaires off a low ticket. You have people that are multimillionaires off a high ticket. Like, it all works. It just don't all work for you. And that's the problem. Most people don't
Mm-hmm.
understand how to figure out what actually works for them. I am somebody that the way I'm designed and the way I show up and the people that I'm here to support, I have all the tickets, because I am a pick
Mm-hmm.
your adventure type of gal, right? Like, so if you need low ticket, I got something for you. If mid ticket is where you want to live, got that too. If high ticket, is what you want, and that's the type of experience you need to have, I have that too, right? Like, whatever ticket you want. It's like, step right up, pick your adventure, right? And so we can create whatever you want to. Because I have more of an alchemist type of energy, right? Um, in the way in which I show up. But I know people who low ticket is their thing and they are killing it, right? And vice versa. I know some people that would never have low ticket, right? Low ticket for them is
Mm-hmm.
$500, right? But they would never sell nothing for $7 or $47 or something like that. But it all works. But the problem is the biggest you know how they always be like the biggest trick of the devil, right? Was trying to
Yeah.
teach you that he didn't exist. And so the biggest trick of the coaching industry was to try to make you feel like it don't all work when it does. It all works. Right? Like, but you might be in a pool with a school of fish that ain't you, right? And so now you like, why is they swimming? Why they swimming upstream? But I'm trying to go downstream because you ain't supposed to be over there, baby. You ain't with the salmon. Like, get over here with these other fish, right? Like, um, this is too cutthroat. I don't like it. Well, you over there with the sharks. Did nobody tell you to be over there with the sharks when you're not a shark? Like, and it's not, it don't make neither one of them wrong, right? So that's a whole big thing. And that's why I push, because, for my work, especially for minority women, specifically Black women, because we have always been placed into a box of what it's supposed to look like, whether it's to our Blackness, whether it's to our womanhood, whether it's to how we operate, for those that are mothers, for those of us without children, like all these different things on what it's supposed to look like. And now it gets to look like exactly whatever the hell you want it to look like.
Yes to all of it. Yes to all of that. You touched on so many things. And I honestly can't just pick one thing to like hone in on because you touched on so much. What I got from all of that is like you're free to do what you want to do, and I know one thing that you encourage is for people to be honest about what it is that they're trying to create in the first place. And so on that note, right, like I've seen you go through a lot of different stages in your business, shift and pivot, which is normal. I don't know anybody that's still doing the same thing now that they were doing, hell, even 3 years ago, let alone 10 or like 11, with you coming up on like 11 years. And so what, I guess, if there was like a series of moments or like one pivotal moment that made it click for you that community building is like what you want to focus on helping people with the most. And how does Gene Keys play a role in that? Because I know it's in there somewhere.
Yeah, so here's the thing. So with the pandemic, what I realized was that with everybody being at home and everybody kind of like shutting down, just in conversations that I was having like privately, like with my friends, even with other people that I work with, one of the major things that came up was people really realizing that either one, they was in community or relationship with people that they didn't even really like, right? That's why you saw a lot of divorces happening. Oh, I didn't know that was going to happen. Okay. You saw a lot of like divorces happening, friendships breaking up, like families breaking apart, like all kind of stuff, right? Because it's like now we're in these close quarters of people, and we're realizing I don't even really like you. Like we just kind of been in coexisting, but we've been coming and going, and because we could be going, we didn't realize that we didn't really like each other. But now because we can't be going, we can only be staying. It's like, wait a minute, what's happening, right? And then I was seeing that play out in people's businesses as well, right? And I am someone who is very observant, and so like even as someone who operates in branding, I'm always looking at like how other people show up, that are not in the traditional, they're not in the industry of coaching, right? So I look at other industries, what are they doing, how, what are they creating and how they're showing. And one of the things is that every huge brand that that has been around for 100 years, 80 years, 50 years, they all have a devout community. The ones that have lasted, they all have a community. Think about Apple products, right? Like Apple, it is a cult following. People are like, y'all keep selling us the same phone, but they will not leave. They stay over there. They just keep buying the same phone, right? And and when you think about it, like even with the whole Coca-Cola versus Pepsi, that's something that's been going on since I was born. I'm about to be 46 years old, like, and I can't never remember a time where it was not Coke against Pepsi, and where you saw people that was like, if they are Coke drinkers, they are not drinking Pepsi. They are like no, and vice versa, right? There is this, people. It's a reason why people call it cult followings, right? Like, because cults ain't really nothing but a a higher level of community, right? It's just that people have distorted what they are having people do when you're looking at cults, right? I've always keep saying I'm going to have a whole conversation about cults versus community, but because a lot of people be dismayed to find out that they actually in cults and not in community.
Yeah.
But but you see all of that and it's like, okay, it didn't even in the culture space when you start looking at it, it's like, okay, the people that are the most successful, they are creating community. Now, whether it's an authentic community or not, that's not what I'm talking about, right? That's another layer to this, but they are creating community where people feel a part of something, right? They feel like they know the person that's leading it. They feel like they're friends. They feel like they're a family member with that person, and so seeing all of that, and then of course, I said I dabble in astrology, and realizing, okay, we're coming up on the age of Aquarius, which we are shifting into in the next, actually in 3 days from the time of recording this, on November 19th, we shift into Pluto shifts into Aquarius for the next like 20 years or something like that, 19 years. And that is a sign of community, right? Like, what is the collective trying to do? What are we trying to do as a group? What is, this is where you look at conscious leadership, right? It's not just me. It is about us as a community. How are we surviving? What are we doing? What plans are we making? And so, as someone that normally always, part of how I'm designed is I see stuff in advance, especially when it comes to culture. Um, I've been on this for like 3 years. So everybody else now is just catching up to be like community, 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 right? And so that's where it was, because I just was like, a lot of stuff that I dealt with, even in a personal standpoint, over the last 5, 6 years, I wouldn't still be here without various communities that I've been a part of. Whether it was a community at that moment that's I'm no longer a part of, whether it's current communities now, communities that I ran, communities that I've just been members of, my friendship circle, that's a community, right? Like, I I literally would not be here like without community. And so, and I understand that from an aspect of an entrepreneur, predict my, I tell people all the time, like, now, whether y'all listening or not, I'm saying this within the next 3 years as a business owner, if you have not built a community, you will not have a business. So trying to do things in the hierarchy aspects, that's Capricorn energy. That's where Pluto was. We're not in that anymore. And so for a lot of people that are probably even in your community that's listening to this, you are people who care about the collective, and you may also be people who have felt like, why am I not jumping off, right? Like, why is my stuff not jumping off? Why am I not getting the exposure? Why am I not getting the comeuppance that other people has gotten? Because it won't your time yet. We won't in the time of the community of the collective. We were still in the time of hierarchy, guru energy, and that's not something that you really want it on a heart level, and that's why it wasn't happening. But watch it start happening now.
I believe it. I'm starting to see it. A lot of people, especially with like the current climate, like still coming off of like everything with the election, a lot of folks are like, they're I'm trying to think of like a nice way to say it. I'm trying to think of like a nice way to say it. A lot of people have decided to stop playing in their own face about the systems that they've been participating in, the communities that they've been a part of, proud member of for, a lot of people, the people that they've been dealing with on a personal level, all of that. Like, they knew they had the rose colored glasses on, but now it's like, I got to take them off for real now, because this has changed, or this thing could potentially happen. And so a lot of people are really, it's kind of like this frantic, chaotic energy around community building. I'm not for that at all. And so for people that are listening who have already been on the community wave, but maybe have been struggling trying to figure out what to do. I know I personally have been having a hard time building community, especially like off of these platforms, right? Like, where a lot of people are also trying to navigate off social, but still want to make their communities accessible. Like, what kind of tips can you offer so that they can build, I'm not going to say authentic community, because, we talked about this already, and authenticity has become an aesthetic. So I'm not talking about that. Like, we will talk about it briefly, but like, for people who have a genuine desire to continue their work, genuine desire to help the people that they're helping, but have been having a hard time doing it in a way that feels good, what kind of tips can you offer to them?
The first thing is to get clear on what you really want. Like, you know, what do you want your community to look like? What do you want it to feel like? Look at your community as an experience, and it's not a one-sided experience. I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs get it wrong, because they often look at it as just what experience do they want other people to have in the space, but they don't think about what type of experience they want to have in the space, right? And that's how they end up painting themselves up against the wall, backing themselves into a corner, because now you create something that everybody else loves and you hate. So you really want to get clear on what do you want the community experience to be like, not just only for those people coming through the door, but for you as yourself, right? That's why I always like to use the analogy of a house, right? Because your home is a very personal thing, because you're there by yourself, but is also the place where you invite those people closest to you to come in and enjoy and have things. So, like, what is your community house looking like? How do you want it to feel? What do you want it to be about? So that's the number one thing. The second thing is, being clear on your boundaries as well, right? Like, because you want to have your boundaries from the door, from the moment it's only one person in there, because that's another thing people mess up with, right? Is they be like, oh, well, it's not a lot of people in here, so I had a capacity to do more stuff because it's not a lot of people in here. And then once it starts growing, then it's like, oh my God, I can't keep doing this, but now everybody's accustomed to you doing it. And so now they're like, well, why are you not doing it? If they don't understand, like, because it's not just you in my inbox now, it's 50 people in my inbox, right? So, like, so it's the epitome of don't start nothing you can't keep up, right? So you have to, set your boundaries as though you already have 1,000 people in your community, or you already have that 500 people that you want to have in your community, or whatever your maximum goal is for your community. Act as though you have all those people in there from day one, so that you set boundaries and things in place from the beginning, right? So that's something else that's practical to think about when you're looking at really crafting this. And then, I'm big on client journey. What's the journey that people are going on? So people are not in your community just to be up in there. Right? Like, what adventure are you taking them on? What journey are you taking them on? How, especially for those that decide to start free communities, how are you leading those people into something that's paid? You are still a business owner, and so you need to be actively leading those people to paid things so that you could begin paid. Even people that have paid communities, what does that look like, right? Because um, the people that came in on day one, now you're 90 days out. You can't expect them to still be doing the same stuff that they was doing on day one. Like, what's next? Right? Like, what is the evolution? What are other things that you're putting in place? What does that look like for the community? Right? And so being clear on those types of things is really important too, as well, because um those are things that I think people don't often think about. They just get excited and they're like, oh, I'm going to open up, you know, this community space, whatever platform you're looking at, whether it's Facebook group or, Mighty Networks or whatever. You open up this space and you're just like, okay. And you have this notion of like, if I build it, they will come. And you open it up and then you're like, okay. And sometimes it does. People come in and you're overwhelmed and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't know all these people was coming. Or you get in there and it's you and one other person, right? And you're like, okay, well, I don't know what to do with this, right? So having a sense of what it needs to look like from the beginning is going to be crucial, because that way you can show up regardless of who's in the space exactly how you want it to be. So.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you touched on a lot just within that, those few tips. But I think like one that I've noticed that's coming up a lot is like boundaries and the topic of boundaries. That is something else that people have been talking about frantically and in a very chaotic way as of late. And so I understand, just as a person, it can be hard to create boundaries, especially if you are coming into contact or like situation with things that you didn't even know bothered you. And so it's like, okay, well, now I know that this upsets me and I need to create a boundary, around how I'm going to respond if this happens again. So that happens a lot in groups, like you mentioned, people start these groups and folks get in there doing whatever they want to do, and then it gets out of control and they're trying to like wrangle it in. And so what are some things that you have done, within your spaces to create those healthy boundaries without sacrificing like that deeper level of connection with the people in your community? Because I know that's something that people worry about a lot.
So, um, so one big boundary I have, for example, for me personally, is I don't work the first week of the month, right? I don't talk to clients. I don't be in my communities. I'm not doing, like, it's me time, right? So that's the expectation that has always been set. It's the first full week. So let me say it like that. It's the first full week of the month, right? Because sometimes it's not necessarily the first or the second, because that's the end of another week. Whatever the first full week of the month is, that's my week and I'm off. So I don't book no coaching sessions. I don't have no group sessions on that week. I don't I don't do nothing, right? Like, that's where, if I want to work behind the scenes in my business, that's one thing, but I don't do anything front facing, right? So if I decide to, everyone already knows I'm making an exception, right? Because that's something that I have laid the groundwork for, that is how I honor my own time. I don't like to jump into the month running, right? I want to chill, be able to reflect on the previous month, what worked, what didn't work, take a breath before I'm ready to be right into this next month, right? And so that's why I chose that week. Someone else might choose the last week of the month, the middle of the month, whatever. I always tell people, build it in. Another thing, so with me, a major boundary is time, right? As far as me having to verbally talk or actively show up. Now, the way I'm able to still create the intimacy piece in my community is, I'm not someone who cares nothing about you being in my inbox. So everybody in my community knows you can come in my inbox as long as you are respectful in my inbox. I don't have no problem. Why? Because even when I'm off, I can be laying on my couch and respond to a message in my inbox, right? So for me, it does not hinder my boundary of I'm not about to have no strategy session with you or be going all into depth with you during times where I'm not technically in the office. But if you have a question or something that's coming up, everybody in my community knows they can send me an inbox message and I'm going to respond at some point. It might be the middle of the night because I'm a night owl and you might be asleep and you see it in the morning, whatever, but I'm going to respond to your message. Now there's other people that becomes overwhelming to them, right? If they had a whole bunch of messages in their inbox, that would drive them insane and they don't want to do it. And so they'd be like, don't come in my inbox, right? The way my energy is set up, that doesn't bother me. So that's also something I know. If I have 100 people in my space and people are in my inbox, it's going to be going through it like I'm going through email for me, because my background also in work was administrative. So I'm used to an inbox type of situation with like lots of messages and me having to go through it. So that doesn't bother me because I can do that while I'm in the bathroom. I can be, in the car. I could be laying on the couch. I could be in the bed and I can be responding, and that's fine, right? So I'm able to. So a lot of times people don't even know that I take the first full week of the month off because I'm still present, right? And they still can ask me stuff. And I also don't have no problem being like, I'll get back to you on Monday, right? Like if that's what I want to say. But more than likely, if it's a quick question, I'm just gonna respond and I'm gonna answer. So these are ways that you can create boundaries, but also still create the intimacy. But it's about you knowing yourself, right? So you don't want to tell people come up in your DM if you have, social anxiety, or are worried about, if you're somebody that's always worried about if I'm gonna say the right thing, I don't want my DMs, you know, plastered or whatever, saying, like, then that might not be the route you want to go. You won't be able to be like, nope, I have a recording of what I said, whatever, whatever the case is, right? Like, so you got to just know this is part of why understanding your Gene Keys is so important, because you get to understand, like, how am I set up? What does that look like? I am someone who thrives in clarity. And so I like writing because it's very clear on what I'm saying, because the words are laid out before you. Words mean things. I say that all the time, right? And words don't always mean what society has made them mean, right? So there's a difference between definition and and what we understand it to mean in pop culture, right? So so all those different things, you got to know that about yourself. This is why I tell people entrepreneurship is the biggest self-help journey you will ever go on. You learn about
I believe
yourself.
it. I believe that wholeheartedly. Absolutely. It's a whole other ball game. And I think because a lot of people, and I'm speaking from personal experience, just having not done the work or really not knowing what to expect outside of what you see. Because, and I don't know if this happens to everybody, but it's like you first become a business owner and you see a certain kind of person. Like you see that person that just seems to have it all together. They're not having any problems. They're making all the money. And I don't know if that's just like by design or what, but it's like I never saw business owners having real life issues in entrepreneurship until I was like deeper into my own entrepreneurship journey. And I also started noticing too that people would create communities and they would be kind of like absent from their communities, and I would never know who was running the group. Like it would have somebody's face and name attached to it, but they weren't there, or like there was all these moderators, admins, or whatever. And so you mentioned a little while ago about like knowing your Gene Keys and the importance of that in like boundaries and determining how you want your business to run, how you want your community to run. Are there certain, I don't know, archetypes or lines of Gene Keys where It's like, okay, if you have this particular archetype or this particular line or energy in your gene keys, a certain kind of community is best for you to start. Like, is there something in gene keys that can help people know if they even need to have an online community or not?
Yeah, so when you're looking at, I'm gonna pull it up because I always tell people Gene Keys be having a lot going on, so I don't even pretend to commit no whole bunch of it to memory because it's too much stuff. But one of the areas you're going to definitely want to look at is your culture sphere. So, for those that are not familiar with Gene Keys is essentially a spiritual modality that really looks at your divine design and how you walk this golden path, right? To understand your genius zone, your love zone, which is your relationship and how you connect with people, and your prosperity zone. So, how do you then eventually have a prosperous life in this lifetime? Well, the culture sphere is inside of the prosperity zone, and that is all about community because it's about who is who is here to support you in bringing your purpose to life, right? So who are going to be the allies that are going to help uplift you and your purpose, and then who are you here to then in turn do that with, right? So the culture sphere is very reciprocal. It's a reciprocal situation, right? So when you're looking at that, there's 64 different gene keys. So there's 64 gene keys. So when you look at your chart, you'll see a number before the decimal. That's your gene key. That's more about you, right? How are you meant to um create community? What is it going to be about you that people are going to be drawn to, right? The line, which is the number after the decimal, there's only 6 of those, and that speaks more to how are you designed to create culture within the collective, right? And so for example, someone who has a line 1, they're going to be an individual person, right? So they're meant to create community and culture more on a one-to-one basis, right? So they may not necessarily be someone that wants to have a traditional community and in regards to having lots of people, right? They may be the person that like travels all over the world and they go and and they're dealing with one neighborhood at a time, or they're going and dealing with connecting with one person at a time. Like they're the epitome of grassroots type of movements, right? They're the person that comes in and kind of sparks the flame and then they're out, right? And then someone else carries the torch within that organization with someone with a different line, right? And they're the spark starter, right? So if you have a line 1, you're really that person that's like just kind of going around creating all the sparks, doing all the things because you're very self-motivated. You don't need other people to help you spark a movement, right? Like you really are like that girl, right? Like to just go and be like, okay, you say the thing, all the people get in an uproar, and you be like, okay, I'm out, got them going, right? And you go over to the next thing. People, for example, with line 2, they're going to be more of partnership, right? So these are going to be the people that do well in one-to-one partnership where they're like linked arms with their best friend or their business bestie, and they done gone off and created a whole nother brand. Like they still have their brand, but them and their business bestie then created a whole brand together, right? Because they're going to be the people that have like JV partnerships, right? And so that partnership piece is really important for them, right? So those are going to be the people that sometimes probably don't even necessarily need to have a business of their own. They are excited to be in partnership with somebody else and run the business, right? And make their money that way. And so if they do work, they do work better one-on-one, right? Working one-on-one with people. So they're going to be the people that will, depending on what type of lifestyle they want to live, they may have the $100,000 one-on-one coaching offer because they don't want to work with a whole bunch of people, but they want to still make money, right? So then now they got to position themselves accordingly, right?
This episode is packed with so much goodness that the host decided to split it into 2 parts. Part 2 is available exclusively for paid subscribers, where we go even deeper into the Gene Key lines and how to use these details to build community and create aligned feel-good offers for your business. Upgrade to a paid subscription now at powerhouse.substack.com/subscribe.